The Biological Code Podcast, a podcast on Germanische Heilkunde. Today we're talking about stomach cancer. The stomach itself consists of two germ layers. One is the ectoderm germ layer. The other one is the endoderm germ layer. There are two possible biological conflicts that can affect the stomach. One is a conflict that relates to one's territory. This is the red group, where handedness and hormonal status need to be taken into account. In Isabel's case, it was a morsel conflict. Isabel was divorced and had been living separated for 3 years. Her 20-year-old son was currently living with her. He was still in the middle of his training. When Isabel met her new partner, they soon wanted to live together, and so they began to make plans for her to move in with him. Her new partner lived 100 kilometers away. For Isabel, that wasn't really an issue. She was all excited, but her son was still in the middle of his education, so moving with her wasn't exactly simple for him. That was her biological conflict. The move had been decided, but it could not be carried out due to her son needing to remain where he was for education. Isabel experienced this as dramatic, unexpected, and isolating. Isabel was conflict active. The moving morsel of not being able to proceed the move was therefore stuck in her stomach as a situation that was difficult to digest. Soon the cells of the large stomach began to multiply and develop a flat-growing tumor in the stomach wall. This process is not painful. Nature immediately helped her by thickening the stomach wall so that the morsel moving in with the new partner could be better taken in and be better digested. So what was the biological solution? It was very simple. As Isabel's son was old enough to live on his own, she spoke to him about the situation and offered to help him find a suitable apartment so he could live independently. To her surprise, he was very understanding, and perhaps even a little happy to become responsible for his own life earlier than expected. So Isabel and her new partner arranged a small apartment for him to move into. This made it possible for Isabel to relocate and move the 100 kilometers to be with her new partner. That was her biological solution. With this biological solution, Isabel now entered the healing phase and developed severe stomach pain because the body was now removing this thickening in the stomach wall with the help of tubercle bacteria. This process can bleed, which can be recognized by the stool turning black. In any case, Isabel went to be examined. The doctor suspected a benign stomach tumor in front of the pylorus. A gastroscopy was performed. Then an abdominal CT was performed, revealing an extensive thickening of the posterior wall of the stomach. This means that the thickening was located on a greater curvature of the stomach. Now the alarm was raised. There was suspicion of a sarcoma, in simple terms, a growth, and doctors now suspected it to be malignant. As a result, a surgery date was scheduled. When Isabel eventually ended up on the operating table, the surgeons found nothing at all and simply closed her back up. The previously noted flat thickening of the stomach wall had regressed. No signs of cancer could be found. It was described as a case of spontaneous healing. Well, anyone familiar with Germanische Heilkunde knows that the growth of the greater curvature of the stomach is always nature's way of helping someone digest a morsel. Originally, this would have been a literal food morsel, and in animals it usually still is. But humans can also experience a morsel in a figurative sense, which then leads the brainstem to trigger cell proliferation in the affected area. At the same time, fungal bacteria are triggered to multiply, so they are available in sufficient numbers. Once the conflict is resolved and the brain switches into the healing phase, they are said to help break down the now unnecessary excess tissue. This is usually accompanied by great fatigue, exhaustion, night sweats, and also pain. But from a biological perspective, it is a reason for celebration, not concern. How wonderful would it be if doctors were allowed to study Germanische Heilkunde and the biological laws of nature and recognize that there is nothing malignant in nature. In any case, Isabel is perfectly healthy today. She resolved her conflict, and Mother Nature took care of everything else. One might now wonder why Isabel underwent surgery during her healing phase in the first place. Quite simply, she was not yet familiar with Germanische Heilkunde at the time. She was in pain and went to get examined, and that is how the surgery came about. Since the conflict mass was not large and the healing phase was not very long, the flat-growing tumor was detected. However, By the time of the actual surgery, it had already been completely decomposed by microbes. The biological laws of nature always apply, even if we are not aware of them. Only when we understand them can we act wisely and avoid unnecessary worry. Learn to think biologically. The knowledge of Germanische Heilkunde belongs in every household. If you'd like to learn how to apply the 5 biological laws in everyday life, visit thebiologyproject.org. You can also find more about our association at urkraftleben.at. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to subscribe. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Telegram, and Instagram. Thank you for listening. Until next time.